Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. Today we're here with another Empire replay from Jaime Lannister in the Mercenaries Melee tournament I recently held. He's up against Demandred's Dark Elves, so let's get straight to it. Volkmar the Grim and a Jade Wizard supporting a front line of veteran swordsmen. Of course, veteran state troops being a staple recently, and we've also got some great swords as well, and 3 units of Knights of the Blazing Sun. So a fairly straightforward Empire Rush army. As for the Dark Elves, they've got a very wide army, Witch Elves, Dark Riders, and Dread Spears, with some Cold One Knights in support. Looks like similar out to this flank. We've got a couple of Harpies as well, and a Shadow Sorceress on a Manticore. Very interesting. Yeah. Right off the bat, Knights of the Blazing Sun charging into these Dark Riders here. They are obviously going to absolutely mulch them, but they're going to have to be careful. There's following spears here, there's Witch Elves as well, so if the Knights of the Blazing Sun get bogged down here, it could be bad. Looks like these Knights are going to charge straight into the Cold One Knights here. Witch Elves also coming into support, but because of the extreme charge bonus, 78 charge bonus on those guys, they do a ton of damage to the Cold One Knights. There are great swords here supporting as well, but that is going to be a pretty atrocious trade. There have been some good charges in the front line by those Cold One Knights. Over here on this side, we've got great swords interrupted. Now, Harpies do count as infantry, so great swords bonus versus infantry will apply here. They should cut through them in time, but they are going to be interrupted. Meanwhile, the Supreme Sorceress drops down here. We may see a bit of a terror rout with these swordsmen. Yeah, it looks like the swordsmen do terror out because of the Manticore there. And that is a bit unfortunate. Over on the other flank, though, things are going okay. Volkmar's own terror is terrifying away these Witch Elves. He's been able to rout off some of these Cold One Knights as well. Knights of the Blazing Sun are taking some pretty extreme damage, though. Those Dread Spears, the Witch Elves, and the Harpies, all just combining here to really do a number on those Knights of the Blazing Sun. Granted, Volkmar comes in to terrify them maybe a bit too late. We'll see. Those Knights may come back. But yeah, they did take some serious losses, both units that were out on this side. That being said, there are still plenty of great swords over here. There are some Witch Elves, though, turning the flank here. This infantry engagement has gone pretty badly for the Empire. There's really just this one unit of great swords left. I guess there are some Knights of the Blazing Sun out here as well, who unfortunately just got enraged into those Witch Elves, which is unfortunate. Knights of the Blazing Sun don't have the best melee defense compared to, like, Reiksguard, for example, but they do have a much higher charge bonus. They also have lower armor as well. So generally, they're a more pure shock cavalry than either Empire Knights or Reiksguard, and thus you need to be more aggressive about cycle charging with them rather than leaving them in sustained combat. But obviously, against Witch Elves can be a bit tough, as it will, drag you into sustained combat once you've taken some damage. That being said, Volkmar still perfectly healthy up here. He's got his trusty group of greatswords backing him up. The Jade Wizard as well comes in here for a nice rear charge. That will apply the rear charge penalty and should be enough to terrify away those units. Meanwhile, the Knights of the Blazing Sun charging through here. Looks like they're going to maybe come try and support these swordsmen here. Maybe go after this unit of Cold One Knights. That would be a pretty aggressive move. It looks like, oh man, they actually missed the charge order slightly. They do get interrupted there by the Dread Spears. Oh, this is going to be bad. The Harpies come in. These Cold One Knights could come in and just sweep them off, but for some reason they decide to go unify with this flank here. Granted, these Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to pull over towards Volkmar. Looks like the Manticore Shadow Sorceress has dropped down here. That being said, there are plenty of Empire troops supporting, especially these great swords, and look at this. Excellent play here from Jaime Lannister, getting the Jade Wizard in here to get rear attacks on the Shadow Sorceress. That is going to bypass her melee defense, and he will be able to get some successive hits in, which will be enough. Volkmar as well. I mean, you can see him taking the swings up here from his altar. I want to say it counts as a melee attack, but I don't exactly know how the melee attack works for his chariots, if it's like the horses biting or what exactly the animation technically counts as. Regardless, though, it's been enough to rout off the Sorceress on the Manticore, so that was a pretty big mistake. There are still a lot of Dark Elf troops over here, and if she had, disengaged from that engagement or just not taken it at all, stayed over here, supported these troops here to, get a quick terror rout, be able to just mop up these troops, could have brought the balance of power back a little bit and isolated Volkmar on what's left here. I mean, what's left is still pretty powerful. There's still a Jade Wizard. Volkmar himself is very healthy. The Knights of the Blazing Sun here still have 20 unit models, so yeah. I mean, these Empire State troops have routed off anyway, along with the Knights of the Blazing Sun, but they could have been routed off a lot sooner if the Terror of the Manticore had stayed firm. I get wanting to try and snipe out Volkmar, but if you don't have overwhelming force, it's really hard to snipe Volkmar. It's better if you don't really have the overwhelming force to necessarily just do it very quickly. It can be better to just isolate him from his army, just, take out everything else first. And, oh man, those spears were unbraced technically, so they did not get their charge defense. Doesn't look like the Knights of the Blazing Sun did a whole lot of damage anyway, but nonetheless, Volkmar going to charge through. It's worth noting that Volkmar does magic damage, so he is actually very good against Witch Elves specifically in this matchup. And since they are a very common pick against the Empire, you can hear them screeching as they get run over by Volkmar's Holy Chariot. Clearly they are full of heresy if they're screeching so. Yeah, it's very good in this matchup, and it's super thematic too. To have Volkmar against these types of witches, banishing the witches and all that. So, yeah, you can see the Supreme Sorceress is shaken here. She's going to make one more dive to attempt to take out Volkmar, but her Manticore doesn't have the best AP values in the world, and Volkmar, of course, has heavy armor, regeneration, and is surrounded by his loyal troops. I say surrounded. Him and his loyal troops are actually the ones that are surrounded. There is one unit of greatswords here that is continuing to hold out with all of Volkmar's buffs here. Grand Shield of Faith, Grand Hammer of Sigmar, they're up to 59 melee attack. We've got 43 models left, and they are racking up kills despite being fully surrounded by Dark Elves. These are the true heroes of the Empire right here. Let's get a close-up of some of these great swordsmen getting their swings in. Fighting tooth and nail, back to back, shoulder to shoulder for the Empire. How badass is this, guys? It doesn't get more badass than this. And Volkmar, the one being at the center, they're guarding him, and he's in turn shouting prayers to Sigmar, buffing them up, and of course the Jade Wizard is also involved. It's going to be too much for the Dark Elves. Their leadership just can't hold out to the terror of Volkmar, and the fact that these greatswords are still here fighting, and they are just taking horrendous losses. They're down to 30 unit models. They've just about got that second XP chevron. 103 kills. Oh man, they're starting to get picked off. A desperate heal from the Jade Wizard here will keep them alive for some time. Oh man, Witch Elves charge in from the side. These few boys here out on the flank. Oh, but the Dark Elves hit army losses. Those great swords managed to hold until the end. How about that? Whew, that finish, man. That was so badass. Those great swords did manage to get that second XP chevron there at the end of the day. 105 kills, just tanking it out with Volkmar. They managed to help collapse that flank pretty heavily, and then just stuck with Volkmar, continuously getting his buffs and just mopping through the Dark Elf lines, and eventually just holding out and letting the leadership damage do the work. I mean, obviously, trying to snipe out Volkmar there with the Supreme Sorceress was a bit of a mistake, but even if he had not done that, it still probably would have been pretty tough. Who knows? He maybe could have routed off those great swords, some of these other units, and just isolated Volkmar and dragged him down that way, but still, it's tough. He didn't really have too many great options, other than the Cold One Knights, which is, I think, why Jamie was going after them so aggressively with the Knights of the Blazing Sun. You can see the Knights, at the end of the day, actually were pretty cost-effective, despite the fact they took some pretty early losses. They managed to get some good charges in, 73, 87, 96 kills there. And, yeah, just all across the board, the veteran troops for the Empire doing reasonably well, 44, 58, and 50. Only 2 for this one. They kind of got munched on by Cold One Knights, I think. But, yeah, for Demandred, obviously the Cold One Knights did quite well. Some of these Witch Elves also, 107, 157. You see why they're such a common pick in this matchup. They mow through Empire State troops. They help pin in enemy heavy cavalry and get them into unfavorable engagements. They're fast, so they can chase down, skirmish units and artillery crews, and just generally a great utility and damage dealing unit. So, definitely not surprised to see 5 of them in this matchup. But yeah, at the end of the day, it wasn't enough. All those witches just banished by Volkmar. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one as much as I did. I know when I first saw this, was just so happy. And thank you, Jamie. You completely made my day with this replay. and hopefully it's made your day as well. So yeah, if so, be sure to give the video a like, subscribe if you want more daily battle reports, and be sure to check out the Patreon if you want to support my channel more personally. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.